Garrett Blevins here with an overview of IPF Classic Worlds 2017. First off, it was a great meet. Had a really great time going out there, seeing some of my friends again, as well as competing at the highest level that powerlifting, raw powerlifting, and drug-free powerlifting has to offer. And the meet didn't go exactly as planned. Honestly, it was as much adversity as I think I've ever had, both outside and inside a meet. The travel itself was very difficult, as well as getting good food. Ended up getting sick from some food that I ate 2 days before and came in about 10 pounds under kind of the weight I wanted to be at. I was able to eat and drink my way back up to 103.5 kilograms, but that was well under what I had been at before, and so it was quite a body weight change, which I think impacted me the most on the squat. This squat here, my second attempt, I got really forward on, at least what really forward is for me. The weight itself moved well, but honestly, going into squats, I was worried about making my opener. And so you can see there that the lift looks a little disjointed. About the last third of the lift, I end up having to kind of lean back with my upper body, and that's because the weight was starting to push me over. The pace of the meet was very quick. There was very little time in between squat and bench. Basically, you had about 3 minutes to rest before you'd have to start your warm-ups. And that was an interesting sort of dynamic as well. But after this squat here, on my way kind of walking through the back room to go over and kind of rest, I actually had to sit down. I was fortunate that a chair was there in the back room because I was blacking out. And that is definitely the most tired and fatigued I have ever been. Luckily, the coaches that were there, Hanny and Susie and Matt Gary, were all able to help me out. They got me some emergency and got some electrolytes in me. And apparently I was pretty depleted, but things started to turn around after that point. Bench warm-ups initially were very difficult, even like 135 or what the equivalent to that would be in kilos, was giving me tunnel vision while I was doing the reps back there, and it was just really beat me up. By the time bench came around, I was able to hit my opener fairly easily. But on the second attempt, for anybody that knows about my benching, this moved much slower than expected. But again, coming into the meet and worrying about my openers, I'm very happy. Was thrilled at this point to be able to bench 479, especially after some of the shoulder issues I've had in this training cycle and having to take time off. But you'll notice there's quite a bit of slowing right through the sticking point, which is right there. And for me, that always kind of sets off alarms that that next jump has to be pretty small. I thought I was conservative enough with it, but it just wasn't there on this day. And part of that's just due, I think, to the travel and the fatigue. That's one of those things that you really have to learn about when you start competing at this different level. And this is where my inexperience shows through the most. I've said before, and if there's anybody out there watching this that you're waiting to compete and you want this big total before you start competing in powerlifting meets, don't do that. Get out there and start getting experiences with the meet, because that meet experience is so incredibly valuable. It was close on that bench, just another half an inch higher, and I'd have been able to get into the lockout position. Same with the squat earlier; it was very close. Not bad numbers being picked, but when you're pushing yourself to the absolute extreme, you really need everything to be firing on all cylinders. And unfortunately, that was not this day. So coming into the deadlifts, was feeling very fatigued, but knew that I had to get myself squared away if I was going to stay in the meet. The opener was basically terrible. My hips rose out of the hole immediately, very slow for an opening deadlift, and it looked ugly. My second attempt was not much better. Again, you can see here a ton of back in that lift, and very slow to lock out. Basically, my form was off, but at this point, there was another lifter within striking distance of third overall. I had taken the gold in the squat and the bench, even with missing my second attempts. But at this point, I could still be kicked off the podium. And Susie Gary gave me one of the greatest pep talks of all time. I will keep a little bit of the trade secrets to myself here on what the exact content of that conversation was, but you can see her here at the bottom of the screen reiterating to me what I needed to do at this point, and it really hit home. I have never probably had a lift with more heart than this deadlift, and it wasn't a PR, it wasn't anything, but it was the only third attempt that I make this entire meet, and I was pretty fired up to go for it. The bar off the floor drifts about 2 inches. I pulled this deadlift from basically the bar being over my toes It's hard to see with the camera angles where they split between them, but if you look, you'll see how the bar just starts to swing out in front of me. And I finished this lift basically with all heart. No form, no technical proficiency, just gutted it out. And you can see how the lockout was impacted there, but didn't hitch and was just probably as happy as I've ever been for any lift I've ever done after that deadlift. I thank my coaches, Hanny especially, as well as the Garys. They did a great job, and I want to give glory to God and thank my family, my wife, my daughter, and all those who supported me. It was a great meet, and I appreciate everything everyone has done for me. I hope wherever you're at, you're doing well. Blessings.